Good morning and happy feast of Saint Gregory, Pope Saint Gregory the Great. So, you know you're a good one when you're not just Pope and you're not just Saint, but you're also the Great. So, if you've ever heard of Gregorian chant, right? Well, guess why it's named Gregorian chant? Guess who made it a big deal? It was when he was the Pope. It's what the Benedictines, in their monasteries, it's how they pray the Liturgy of the Hours, and the chants were the vehicle for that. So in the Gospel, there's something that we see happen periodically, but I'd like to touch upon it, and it has to do with discernment. Jesus has performed the biggest miracle that he performed in the entire Gospel, because not only did he cure Simon's mother-in-law, but after the mother-in-law was cured, she got up and served Simon Peter. When has a mother-in-law ever done that? You're supposed to laugh, okay? That was a joke. Sensitive people. But then what happens is Jesus has spent a day in Capernaum being very successful. He was still a new thing. He was a novelty in Capernaum. And people are bringing to him all these sick, and he's working miracles, and it seems like he's got a great thing going. Then in the morning, early on, he wakes up before everybody else. He goes out into the countryside and prays. The people logically come to him and say, "Hey, come on, we've got a great thing going. Let's keep it up." And Jesus says, it's time to move on. So what happened? Christ went into prayer. This is a theme we're going to see over and over again in his ministry. Christ went into prayer in solitude in order to hear the voice of the Father. Christ, obviously, he is simultaneously God and man. He's fully God and fully man, but he seems to have operated, for the most part, using his human intellect and human psychology. And this teaches us something, because it means that if Jesus himself, perfect man and true God, could not adequately discern his next steps without constantly referring to God the Father in prayer, what does that say about us? Right? How many of us really truly, before every major decision, really truly take it to prayer and really truly seek God's guidance, God's light? That's the first thing. The second thing is, and this is where Christ has a big advantage over us, a lot of times I will hear things like, "Father, I took it to prayer and I discerned," and the bottom line is, I felt in my heart that the thing that I already wanted to do in the first place is what God is telling me to do. But since I prayed about it, now I know it's God's will. It's like, it's not God's will. You're just baptizing your emotions. You're just baptizing what you wanted God to tell you in the first place. One of the interesting things is regularly we see Jesus doing things that are totally inconvenient. And we don't even really realize it. But here, he's in Capernaum, far up on the western bank of the Sea of Galilee. And Jesus suddenly says, after praying, "I need to go to the other towns." And he goes down to Judea. Now, Judea is a totally different part of Israel. We know Jerusalem is in Judea. Jerusalem from Capernaum is probably about a 75-mile walk. Roughly, maybe a little longer. Actually, from Nazareth it's 75, so probably even further from Capernaum. Now, I don't know where the border of Judea is, but you're looking at least 50 miles, I'm guessing. So instead of sticking around and doing what was convenient for him and where things were working and where he would have frankly been having fun and etc., 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 all his apostles wanted it because Peter was based in Capernaum, Andrew and James and John and all these people were from that area. Instead of sticking around and doing the thing that came easily, he heard the voice of the Father saying, "No, go somewhere inconvenient." Now, Judea is also, being where Jerusalem was, it's probably the area where he's going to find most resistance. But he knew that the only thing that ultimately matters is to do God's will, whether or not it is convenient. And actually that has to do a bit with today's saint, Saint Gregory. St. Gregor the Great, I just read in the breviary shortly before Mass, the Office of Readings, which is somewhat amusing because St. Gregory was a Benedictine monk. And then because he was a very good monk, they made him abbot, so in charge of the whole monastery. Not only the monastery, because the monastery had it was almost like a little nation. It had countryside around it. It's like a town practically that it governed. And eventually they made him pope. Excuse me. They made him pope, and he's complaining the whole time that now that they've made me pope, I've got all this responsibility, and it was totally annoying to him. He couldn't pray the way he wanted to pray. He couldn't do the things he wanted to do like a good monk because he had to worry about basically governing a nation. I mean, back then, the pope meant that he governed the entire central part of Italy. And he's complaining. And it was God's will for him, and it was totally inconvenient. But he said, yes, ultimately the only thing that matters is, am I doing God's will? So a good point of discernment for us is, number one, if I want to know God's will, do I really truly pray about it regularly? And number two, am I open to after I've prayed, am I open to doing the thing that would be least convenient and most annoying? If I'm truly open to that, then that's a good sign that I'm open to God's will. If every time I take it to prayer and it just feels like, well, I just feel like I hear God saying that I should do the thing I wanted to do anyway, well, you have to really question your discernment.